Today's card of the day is Protection Racket. 2 and a black for an enchantment with, at the beginning of your upkeep, repeat the following process for each opponent in turn order. Reveal the top card of your library. That player may pay life equal to that card's mana value. If they do, exile that card. Otherwise, put it into your hand. I wasn't really sure about this card, but then after seeing it being played once or twice, I think it's pretty decent, especially for the decks that it belongs in. I think it's actually probably going to be a mainstay, and that it's an enchantment that enables that sort of effect that those decks want. This probably goes without saying, but the fact that this card can really enable that strategy while being an enchantment, really, it's the card type that brings it together, I think, because enchantment's one of the harder things to remove. That makes this like super strong. Although the downside is those cards do get exiled. If you have a high consistency of these sort of group sluggy effects, that I think this might be fine, right? Like if you have a Perforos and someone chooses to exile it, I think at that point you should, well, prior to that, just making your deck, I think you should have enough consistency, or like you have the impact tremors, you have the all other sort of ETB deal damage sort of effects, that exiling that Perforos shouldn't matter too much. That's where I think that card becomes super strong. So probably any sort of black group slug decks that want to play the sort of effect should probably play it. I was thinking of immediately like Yuriko or Rakdos Lord of Riots, where Yuriko generally wants to put things and manipulate the top of their library to put, huge fat Eldrazi on top of their library and just do tons of damage. I think that's where this shines. For Rakdos, it also happens on your upkeep, and it happens just before the turn that you want to play Rakdos, turn 4, I assume, if you don't have any like colored mana rocks coming out. And I think that's super strong because that just means basically Rakdos is probably going to be free because your opponents don't want you to draw extra cards. Like think of the world where your opponents are like, whoa, 6 damage to get your Infernal Titan or whatever. Yeah, you can have that. Well, not only did you draw an extra Infernal Titan for obvious group slug reasons, you can play it, and then you can also cast Lord of Riots, and I think that's like pretty strong. I think that's like a pretty strong effect. So I'm thinking this is definitely a keeper. I don't know all the group slug commanders that would want to play this, but I'm generally thinking that like most Rakdos commanders that have that group slug effect, I think there might be one god that has like group slug ability. It's like during your upkeep, you have that player sack a creature or else they take 2 damage. I forget exactly. It might be, Mogus, God of Slaughter. God of Laughter, they say. Or I guess even a Kroxa deck probably won't mind that sort of effect either. Although putting it in exile might be a little rough because generally Kroxa decks, I'm assuming, want to have things in their graveyards. That way they can escape Kroxa. I don't think it'll be that bad. I don't think it'll be that bad. Like 3 mana, would you play 3 mana, deal 2 damage to every opponent? I think most Kroxa decks that do lend itself to group slug effects probably are playing things like Swirling Vortex, which is basically an enchantment that says you can't gain life, but you do too much on each upkeep. I think group slug decks probably want to play that. And like I said, I think generally you should have enough consistency in your deck, just via deck building general guidelines, that you'll have enough of these effects where even if they do exile 1 or 2 of them, you probably have a few more in your deck. Now, even if you don't like the idea of exiling cards from your deck, think of it this way. Most of the time, I think, and this might be overreaching here, I don't know if this is true or not, but I think most of the time that people do play Commander, they're probably not going through 100 cards of their deck. So with that being said, if you can exile just like 30 cards with this, you probably got more than your money's worth out of this card. Like 3 mana deal, I'm assuming most of the cards in your deck are probably more than 1 mana. And you can hit some lands, okay. You're probably doing somewhere upper 30 damage with this. That's like pretty decent. Like I've seen games where Island of Revel has just been tanking people's life. Like it by itself literally doing over 100 damage in a game, right? Like this sort of effect I think is pretty strong on an enchantment because it's super hard to remove and it's like consistent amounts of damage. With that being said, I'm super curious on if people have already tried this. This has been out for a minute. Is exiling, I feel like exiling cards from your deck is basically like a mill sort of strategy where like the idea that you could have had that card but now it's in exile really gets under people's skin. I'm curious if people who do play those sort of effects think about this card. But of course, let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. Are you playing it? Is the Exile a card really bad for you? What do y'all think? I'm assuming if you do play this card, you don't want one sort of win con where like someone will just exile it. You definitely want to lean into that group slug effect. I think that's where it's strong most. But of course, let me know. I'll catch y'all later.